Hello everyone, welcome to the first video of this channel, and today we're going to talk about SolidStart. And before we do that, let me tell you something about the video. This is not going to be a tutorial, so it's not a old-fashioned way where I teach you everything. It is more of like an experimental guide where I install SolidStart, create a project, and do experiments with it, like what SolidStart had to offer. And throughout this journey, we will cover almost everything that SolidStart had to offer, and in this way we will learn how to create applications in SolidStart. So by the end of this video, you guys will be able to create your own any kind of web application in SolidStart, and you guys able to understand the core technologies or the core principles the guys used in the SolidStart. So before all that, I'm using SolidStart from about 2 years now in the production, and that went really well. But it's been 6 months since I wrote any code base in the SolidStart, so it's kind of new to me as well. So we all gonna look into it and do some experiments with it. All right, so I guess let's get in. So first of all, what is SolidStart? They have a very beautiful website, SolidStart. All right, so what is it? So I assume you guys know React, Next.js, SolidJS, all kind of stuff, and you want to expand your knowledge here. So I assume you guys know what is SolidJS. So SolidStart is basically the full stack framework for SolidJS. So assume you get all kinds of rendering stuff, the server-side logics and everything for SolidJS. And that's pretty cool because in the past, if we create any SolidJS application, it's just client-side. It renders on the client side, it works on the client side, and nothing happens on the server. You have to create your backend in separate things, maybe Node.js, Python, or anything you like. But with the help of SolidStart, your entire project can be in a single code base, and it will separate down the front-end things to one thing, and then server to another thing, and then it will run everything on the server and send response accordingly how you configure the app. So the first core thing they have is meta framework. So it is not like a fixed thing. Like if you think about it, the team already have SolidJS to render things on the client. They also have Solid Router to navigate around, and the only missing piece they had is how to deal with the server, and that's where Vinci comes in. So Vinci is a tool which uses Vite and Nitro. So it uses Vite to bundle things to separate client side and the server side, and it uses Nitro to serve those server side files. Like if you look at Nitro.js, for example, it's a really wonderful project, and Nitro gives us all kinds of things that SolidJS needs, like file-based routing and like deploy anywhere, Vercel or AWS or anything. Like if you think about it, Next.js says that you can deploy Next.js everywhere, but that's half truth. It's very easy to deploy Next.js on Vercel because that's their parent company. But if you want to deploy Next.js on Cloudflare workers or AWS, it will be a mess because they don't want you to do that. But that's not the case with SolidStart because it's built on top of Nitro. Nitro is a dependency of there, and it's really easy to deploy Nitro almost everywhere, like any runtime, Node.js, Bundino, or any platform. So that's really good. So when they got all these missing pieces, they cook SolidStart. So with the help of SolidStart, we can do all kinds of things like the single flag mutation, deduplication, and many things. We will look at each topic when we create an application in it. And just like I said, Nitro is the dependency so that you can deploy it anywhere, Cloudflare, Netlify, or wherever you want. So that's pretty cool. All right, so without wasting time, let's just get started. And so SolidStart is an open source meta framework. So what does meta framework means? It means that, so the one thing I forgot to tell you about is it's a meta framework. And what does that mean is in Next.js, they give you app router or page router, and that is fixed. If you want to use router, you have to use one of those routers, and you cannot use anything other. But in SolidJS, because everything is in pieces, like you got SolidJS to render on the client side, you got Nitro to do server-side stuff, and if you want to do a router, you can change your router. Like if you don't like Solid Router, you can use 10-stack router or any router that is compatible with the layer. You can use any router, you can use anything like that, and that is why it's a meta framework. So it does not force you to do one thing. So it's a meta framework designed to unify a component that makes a web application. It built on top of Solid and uses Vinci. What is Vinci? An agnostic framework bundler that combines the power of Vite and Nitro. So with the help of SolidStart, we can do all kinds of rendering, just like Next.js. We can do client-side rendering. So as you know what is client-side rendering, we will send the static files to the browser and rendering will happen on the client side. We will only do server-side logic. And what's server-side? You can also do server-side rendering, which means like when the user loads a route for the first time, we like render everything into static files like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then send those files to the client. The browser don't have to render anything. They just saw pre-rendered HTML and they can interact with it. And as soon as they click on a link or a button, it becomes a client-side app, and then all kind of rendering starts happen on the client side. We will talk about it. And then there's a static side generation. So if you want to generate static web pages, you can also do that. They got quite some good features like fine-grained reactivity, of course, because they use SolidJS and many other stuff. All right, so let's just create an app. Let's see how that goes. We're gonna use pnpm. Let's copy it and let me zoom out this as well. Big Pro. Oh boy. Window. Yeah, there you go. So let's create a SolidJS application. So it asks us for a project name. So what should we build? So we want to experiment with data loading and data mutation. So we want to send something to the server. We want to get something from the server. We want to test all kinds of renderings. And we also want to know how to deal with authentication, like sessions and everything, middleware. And I guess that's pretty much it in a framework. And as for the router and everything, we will look at it. All right, so I think we should create a site where a user can register or a login and then add some comments there, or maybe a to-do, a simple to-do. So let's say solid login to-do, a new interesting project. What type of project would you like to create? So we want to create SolidStart. So you can also select SolidJS plus Vite if you just want to do the client-side basic SolidJS app, not the full stack app. But we're gonna go with SolidStart. Which version of SolidStart would you want to use? So they got two versions. So by the way, yeah, so let me tell you the whole story here so you get a basic understanding. So they have two versions. Right now, they have version 1 that uses Vinci. So Vinci talks to Vite and Nitro. So SolidJS talks to Vinci and then it does stuff with Vite and Nitro. But technologies have developed so far, so we do not need Vinci anymore. So in V2, like they also even have a blog post on it right up there. Public roadmap, DaVinci and beyond. So in their version 2, they're gonna get rid of Vinci. So they're gonna directly communicate with Vite and Nitro to get their things done. And this will like reduce one dependency and help them to like develop something good stuff. So it is still pre-release. They haven't released it yet. So what we're gonna do, we're still gonna go with version 1, develop our application, do all kinds of stuff, and then convert our application to version 2 so we can see what actually got changed and what configurations and what changes we have to do in order to like migrate your apps to version V2. All right, we're gonna use TypeScript. Which template would you like to use? So we want bare minimum, like the least SolidStart can offer to us so we can experiment with all kinds of stuff. All right, creating project. Solid login to do, and let's install all the packages. And while it's doing it, let's open the project in our code editor. So things are quite small here, but let me first load the project. Solid login to do. There you go. And let's increase some font size. So settings, we want to increase the font from 18 to I guess 24 minimum, and 16 to 20. So I hope everything is visible now because that's already too big. So what we got in the project, so what's the file structure here? Sorry guys. So let's get started. Let's go to get started. We did all the stuff. SolidStart uses Vinci for both the starting a development server with Vite and for building and starting production server with Nitro. When you run your application, you're actually running Vinci dev under the hood. You can read more about it here. And then this is the file structure they got us. So first of all, they got the public folder, and as any full stack framework, public is where you put your stuff, static stuff in there, and it will end up in the final build without any configurations. Then they got the src for all their source applications, and we can also import src with these as well. I don't know, I forgot what to say. And yeah, then they have the root folder if you want any file based routing. Then they got the client entry, server entry, and app.tsx. All right, so let's look at them one by one. First of all, in the package.json, what we got? So in the package.json, we obviously, as this says Vinci, so it used Vinci behind the scenes to starting a dev server, building the app, and so they got 3 dependencies: SolidStart, SolidJS, and Vinci. All right, so Vinci got the Vite and Nitro in it, I hope. Yes. So what if, now let's start our what if session. So we're gonna ask many what ifs here. So first of all, what if I do pn build? What will happen? What it actually do behind the scenes? So basically pn is just pnpm. It builds the application. So first of all, it starts Vinci, building your application, building your roots SSR, server-side rendering. So I assume the server-side rendering is enabled by default. So it first of all builds the app for SSR. All right, so compiling SSR router, and then it builds the app for the client router. It builds a client JavaScript file, a client CSS file, server FNS. So it used Vite behind the scene, by the way, to build these stuffs. So it built for server something, and then preparing app for Node.js present. So yeah, as you know, we can run Nitro on almost anything, on Bun, Node, Dino, on any runtimes, or maybe Vercel or Cloudflare Worker. So by default, it builds the app for the Node.js runtime, and it generates files in the output/public folder. So they got an output folder, and it have the server-side code, public code, and chunks and everything. All right, so how to start it? I guess preview. We wanna know the preview of the build. So pnpm preview. Preview failed. So Vinci preview, and Vinci do not have a preview command in it. So this is something wrong. It shouldn't be in here. So what is start? Start your built Vinci app. That's what we want. So pn start. It will do Vinci start. And now we are listening to localhost 3000. All right, let's open our localhost 3000, and boom, hello world. Click. So what we actually got, let's see. So I would say let's dock our here, and we do not want mobile mode. Okay, let's zoom this as well. There you go. So first of all, in the network tab, what we actually get from the server. So we got 3-4 files. So forget about this tag assistant. It's coming from a Chrome extension, like from up here, from tag assistant, from Google Tag Assistant. If we ignore this, we got 4 files. First of all is a document. It's an HTML file. Then we got a CSS, a JavaScript, and a favicon. If we look at the HTML file, we got a pre-rendered HTML. Yep, click hello world. So it's a pre-rendered HTML, or it's a server-side HTML, I would say. We got this response from server-side. So if I disable the JavaScript, for example, like if I go in the settings and I disable the JavaScript, I reload the page, I can still see the content because it is not client-side rendered. The JavaScript didn't take a single role here. It got blocked, which means obviously this is not going to work. But all right, so first of all, how to change it? Like I do not want server-side rendering. I want client-side rendering. So as far as I remember, like the last time I built the app, it was in the app configurations. So we can pass stuff in here. And we got SSR. Just a second, guys. All right, just sorry, guys. So there we go. Yeah, SSR. There it is. So what it takes a boolean. So I assume SSR is true by default. That's why this whole thing is happening. So if we make it false and then build it, so let's do p and build. Now what happens? Building your router SSR. So it builds something. It still builds something for SSR. Then it builds for the client mode. Okay, server functions. I'm not sure. It did no pre-rendering one route. So it did something. If I do p and start now, and my JavaScript is disabled right now, and if I do hot reload, no content. Why? So if we look at the HTML, nothing in here. It's just div with ID app. So it tries to render on the client side, but JavaScript was off and nothing was painted. So that's the difference between server side and client side. And obviously we do not want that. But if you have any application that do not need server side rendering, you can just turn it off and it will become a client side rendering. Really good. All right, so we don't need it. Let's remove it for a while and build it again. And let's see what else we got. Let's do p and start. So now it's on the server side rendering, and let's enable our JavaScript because JavaScript is required these days. To be honest, it doesn't require anyways, but yeah, it's all right. Let's reload it. So now we got an HTML, pre-rendered HTML, by the way. Then we got a CSS. All right. And from where we got the CSS? .css, one file only. Inactive, increment inactive, and a body, increment inactive. So it just copy paste the whole app.css in here and call it a day. Then we got a JavaScript file. Now it contains many things in here. Yeah, I assume this is the JavaScript file that have SolidJS in it. So this is the file of SolidJS. All right, so we got it. Oh, okay. Then we have things in the src folder. We got global types, entry server.tsx. So what is this? Entry server.tsx. This file will handle requests on server like entry client.tsx. In most cases, you will not need to modify this file. And what is client? This file is what loads and hydrates the browser, hydrates the JavaScript for our application on client side. In most cases, you will not need to modify this file. Okay, so this file is responsible to hydrate the app. Okay, so basically when you do server-side rendering, or you do not do the server-side rendering, you will always get a call on this create handler. I assume. So let's do the test. Let's do not assume things and let's do the test. So let's do p and dev. And we do not want to return this like that. We want to return like that. HTML. So what? Okay, and we want to do console log entry server. And if we save it, and let's come here, reload the app. Syntax error. Where's the syntax error? Yes, there is a syntax error. I forgot how to do that. Well, that's what's happened when you program in multiple different languages. Oh yeah, sure, why not? Boom, boom. Server, entry server, but 2 times. Why is that? I mean, I called just 1 time. So does this create handler give anything? So it takes a function which takes a context. All right, so this thing takes a context with the type of page event. So what's inside the context? Context dot many things, request, response. So yeah, we want to check the request, and it got the whole request, headers and everything. So we want the URL. All right, boom. Entry server. So first of all, yeah, that's what I hit. Well-known application Chrome DevTools. Yeah, so this is something from Chrome, not from, this is the call we didn't make. This one is made by Chrome. But that proves that whoever makes the call, this file will always get called. Okay, so what about client? If I do console.log here and say entry client, so what we assume is right now the server-side rendering is on. So should this run on the server as well for the first time? Let's figure it out. So if I go to console, entry client is here. If I do hard reload, we can see entry client here, but entry client is not on the server side. So basically this file will never run on the server. It's 100% sure. So if you want to put any code base like that should run after the hydration, you can put that code over here, and that will only run on the client side. That is good. So what is okay, so we got mount function and we got start client function. Start client, we also got a documentation here. Start client is a component that wraps the application root. It can pass to mount in the entry client.tsx. So nothing's, no more information there. We already knew that. Start client 10 stack. So that is the beauty. Like, it's a meta framework. You can use 10 stack router and then mount your 10 stack application over here, and that will also work, I assume. Not sure. We will do an experiment there as well. Okay, so entry server will always run on the server on every single request. Entry client will always run on the client when the hydration starts. So basically this file is responsible to hydrate your app. Okay, fine enough. Then we got a basic app.tsx. Then we got a CSS file. All right, nothing special, super simple application. We got SolidJS, we got SolidStart. But why? Like, I mean, if you think about it, it's, oh yeah. If you think about it, it's like a simple SolidJS app, but with the help of SolidStart, it is server-side rendered, and we also have server-side entry files, so we can extend it to make it further. Okay, so what do we need? We need, first of all, 3 pages: login, register, and obviously a homepage. And if you think about it, we do not even need register. Let's say we already registered the user. So let's think about login. So login will give us the session management, and then we need the homepage, and user cannot access the homepage until they are logged in. Sorry, which means the data fetching and state management, obviously session management. So first of all, we need a router, because without router, how the hell are we going to create pages? So we're going to use solid router. So let's say we come to routing, create new routes. SolidStart use file-based routing, which is way of defining your routes by creating files. Okay, we all know what file-based routing is, and we can use solid router. All right, so how to install it? Pn install solid router, I assume. No, this is the package name. Be aware from fake npm packages. And there we go. Let's wait for it. Done. 16.1. So if we go into package.json, we got a router now. So how to use this router? So what we need is in the app.tsx. Let's just copy it. Go over here, paste it. So what we have here, so we got router from solid router. We got file route. So what's this? File routes is a component that creates routes for each file in the routes folder in the routes directory. This creates a route export to define the route configuration for the router of your choice. For example, using Solid Router will look something like this. Alright, so basically, whichever routes we create in the files, this component will I think it have a function which fetch each file in the routes directory and then creates a big JSON and tell the Solid Router that I have this many routes. So navigate around it. And then in the root, we got suspense, maybe for data loading. And then we display each children. So basically, if I go to /login, router knows that there is a /login because file routes tell it. And then router gets the data for login and then render in here. Or it's too much theory. How about we figure it out? So let's say we do not need app.css anymore, but yeah, let's delete it. We will use Tailwind CSS later. Okay, so if I do pnpm dev and we reload the page, nothing will show because obviously it's just a router and nothing in it. So we want an index page. How to create an index page? So if I do route/index.tsx, export default function home page, and let's return that it's a home page. Okay, it's a home page. So what is the setting for file routing? Let's look for it. Oh wow, so we can also copy paste this as well. So if you want to create /blog, it will be route/blog.tsx. Good. If you want to create context, same thing. Direction, same thing. If you want to do nesting, it's like blog/article, it should be blog article1.tsx. All right. If we did this, so it's the basic domain. Okay. Socials. So we can also do this like the directory name and index.tsx. Nested layouts. So if we create a file name and a directory with the same name, this file will be treated as the layout. But what if I want to create a top level layout, like a layout for every single thing? I mean, that is obviously not a good thing. This will not happen on any site. But for my site, I want like a global layout that covers every single page. Do they have anything for it? Layout. Escaping nested layout. So what's this? So if we do user index project, what's this? Renaming indexes. So by default, the component that is rendered for a root comes from the default export index.tsx, obviously. To avoid this, oh wait, in each folder, however, this makes difficult to find correct index.tsx file. Yeah, because you will have multiple index.tsx file for each route, and that's super hard to find which index file you want to look at. Like in SvelteKit, you have page.tsx everywhere, and if you want to go to context page, then it's hard to find. So the doc's saying that if you use parenthesis and name it like that, it will be treated as this. So why not? So let's say I want to create a route for login. So login / parenthesis login.tsx. Export default function login, the login page. So what I should be able to see is if I go to /login, it's a login page. Boom. How nice is it? So you do not need to have multiple index.tsx. Well, that's a good thing and a bad thing about JavaScript, that you have many different ways to do a certain thing. And it's a good thing when you have your own conventions, when you have your own business logic, you have your own design patterns. But it's a bad thing when you don't have it, because in one file you're doing index.tsx, in another file you're doing parenthesis and then file name. So I always recommend you guys that when you work in languages like JavaScript, always create your own design patterns. Like, you have to be consistent across your code base, and that's the only way a new engineer, when he comes to your application, he knows exactly what's going on. So we're gonna stick with index.tsx. I mean, I know that's bad, but let's stick with it because our homepage is index.tsx. That's a well-based argument. Okay, so we still do not know how to create a top level layout, and I'm not seeing anything in here which can satisfy our need. Yeah, IDs and everything, catch all routes, route grouping. So if we do this, oh, so like this will get excluded. It's for development purposes. Yeah, they do not have top level layout. So I think we have to do this. A new folder, let's name it app. Yeah, or maybe app. Okay, and then let's create a file, app.tsx. So this file should be treated as layout file for the app folder. And if we move our main index to the app folder and our login to this app folder, now in the app, let's say export default function app layout, and it's the top layout. All right, so if we go here on the login page, we are seeing it's a top layout, but we are not seeing the content of the login page. Why is that? Because maybe you have to pass children around it. Layout. Yes, so every layout file takes a prop, root section prop, and that prop have a children, and that is like, wait, there's a note here. Creating a blog/index.tsx or blog index.tsx is not the same, as it would only be used for the index route. But yeah, it still doesn't satisfy our need, but it's a good thing. All right, so we need props. This thing gets the props, and there's a type for it, root section prop. We get this from SolidRouter, and which means now I can access props.children, and boom, it's a login page. Awesome. So let's put some links. So how we navigate around login page and a home page. I assume basic hrefs /login page, href /home page, and we obviously want break here. Yep. So login page, home page, login page, home page. Super cool. And as you can see, this is not doing a hard refresh. Like if I go to the network tab, let's say I'm on the home page and I reload it, I got so many files. But if I click on home page, wait, we didn't even click on it, and it loads something. It loads the login page that have the JavaScript it needs to manipulate the DOM, change the content from home page to login page. This is the JavaScript for it, and it's a source map. So if I click on it, it instantly changes the content. How? Because it preloaded the JavaScript. This will give instant, like super instant thing to your application. All right, so what's next? So next we need to lock the home page, so we do not have to think about authentication. Okay, so let's take a water break and then I will start again. All right, okay, so where we were, so we have login page and a home page. Now we need session. So we need a session where we can store user, and if the user is not found, we're not gonna let them access the home page, and they can log in, update the session, and then they can access the home page. So how to deal with sessions? Let's see. So in the routing, in the guidance, we got sessions. So how it works: session creation, session cookie transmission. So yeah, it saves the session in a cookie. Subsequent request. So we got some helpers: use session, get session, update session, and clear session. All right. Sessions allow web apps to maintain state between user requests. Since HTTP is stateless, each request is treated independently. Session address this by allowing server to recognize multiple requests by the same user with the help of cookies. All right. So basically, we have some helpers, and with those helpers, we can define the type and then save some data in the session, which will eventually end up in the cookies of the request and response. So with every single request, we can see which user is calling the app. But that means like we cannot just expose the data. It has to be encrypted. And the good thing is use session have password. So I assume this will take a password and then it will encrypt the data and set it to the cookie. Let's figure it out. I think that's pretty cool. So let's copy the whole thing and let's go to src folder and create our lib/session.tsx. Save it. Session data. So we're not gonna do the theme. So what information we're gonna store in the session? If you guys doing this on the production, you're obviously gonna need user ID or maybe some other information, but for now I'm only gonna do the email. So I mean, it's the same thing. If you want user ID, you can just say user ID and number, and just like that you can store user ID in the session, read it, and display data according for that user ID. But let's say we need email, type string, the function name. So it's like we're creating a helper function which uses the use session. Let's say use user session, use server. So it is exactly like the next case. So I assume that this block of code will only run on the server side. It will not run on the client side. Obviously, if it runs on the client side, we expose our env and many different things. But what will happen if we tries to call this function on the client side? Well, we'll figure out. We'll do the test. Use session. So it needs a password. All right. Well, who's gonna write the env? Some strong password. Name of the session. Let's call it just session. Okay, so basically what will happen is when we call this function for the first time, it will try this code base will try to read the request header, the headers of the request, and then it will try to get a cookie name, a cookie with the name of session, and then it will try to decode the cookie with the help of this password. And if it's able to do that successfully, it will have the data in it. And if it fails, that means the session does not exist, and in that case we can update it with the data. So it is like the default data, but we don't need it, so let's just say bye. All right, super simple. So we got email, session, and everything. So now it's the question. So on the home page, how we gonna fetch a session? So we need something for data loading. So in the routes, in the home page, we need something to load the data. So in that thing, we will load the session, and if the session not found, we will redirect the user. So data fetching. Fetching data from a remote API or a database is the core task, obviously. Solid and Solid Router provide fundamental tools like create resource and queries to manage asynchronous data. Okay, they got some examples. You can also find many practical examples in here. Data fetching. Okay, so basically they got a query function in which we can provide an asynchronous fetcher, and we also need name to that query. And then we can use create async to call that query, and then we will get data showing loading UI, import suspense, wrap around it, handling errors, so error boundary, preload data, passing parameters. All right, so too much stuff is here. That's too much information. So let's start from one by one. So we need the one thing we get is we need to create a query. Okay, so let's create a query. Const user, we're gonna call it user query. It's going to be a query. So query takes 2 arguments but got 0. As we saw in the example, the first argument it takes is an asynchronous function. Why asynchronous? Like, I do not want asynchronous. What if? And the second thing it needs is a name for that query. Why? Maybe to prevent deduplication? We'll see. So user query. No error. So looks like we can pass even a synchronous function in here. All right. Now let's see. Okay, so console log user query, and let's return an email, a dummy email. So dummy@yummy.com. Wow, spelling mistake, but who cares? Okay, so how we gonna call this query? What if we just do user query? Looks like a valid code. I reload it. Nothing's on the client, nothing's over here. So we cannot do this. Yeah, in the guide they say we have to use create async. So what is create async? Create async store and create async. Create async is currently a thin wrapper over create resource. While create resource offers similar functionality, create async is a recommended primitive for most asynchronous data fetching. Okay, so it takes a fetcher function, it takes some options. We can also pass a name here. Okay, deferred stream. If true, streaming will be deferred until the fetcher finishes executing. All right, something over here as well. Basic example. Okay, so maybe it works like that. Const email equals create async and then a fetcher function that calls the query. So here's the fetcher function for you. It calls the query. Error. Type string is not assignable to the type promise. So user query is returning a string and it needs a promise, so that's why it has to be an async, because it will not satisfy this guy. Okay, sure. So if we say we got this, we got paste, let's say div paste, and let's say we want to show the email here. So you may ask why I called it, because it returns a signal. You can see I saw at the types this guy returns an accessor. An accessor is a signal. Like if we do not call it, it's a accessor with latest. It's not assignable to the type of string and element. Okay, so signals are callable functions. We call it. Let's see what happens. So if we go to home page, we got dummy@yummy.com. So this works. But what if I wait a second? User query shows on the client side. So if I reload the page, now it doesn't show on the client side, but it shows on the server side because it was server rendered. So basically on the first node, so if I go to home, if I go to login, okay, I'm on the login page. And now if I click on the home page, now it renders on the server. So right now it is running. So if a user loads the page for the first time, it is running on the server because it is server-side rendering. So server doing the whole rendering for us. And as soon as user click on the next page, it becomes a client side. So I assume it is by default client side, because server-side rendering's job is to render client-side's job. So it is client side, and we want to make it server-side. And that's where I assume is that use server comes in. But what if now's the great question. What if we we do this const session equals await use user session? So this thing is a server-side code. As you can see, it only runs on the server, but we are running this on the client side. What will happen now? Console log session.data. So what do you guys think? Like if I reload the page, password string too short, minimum 32 characters are required. Password string. So this should be at least 32 characters. Wow, this is good. So, and no one can like crack your session. That is good. Okay, so I assume this is more than 32 characters. Let's reload it again. Cannot set headers after they are sent to the client. And that's not it. Fail to fetch URL schema, node is not supported. Okay. Something really bad happens. Control Shift R. So we got many. Oh wait. Now it works. Yes, because it renders on the server side, and it will work on server because that was use server. But if you go to login page, clear everything, go to networks, clear everything, hover on it. Oh, sorry, that's the login page. My bad. Home page. It fails. Malform server function stream header. So it didn't run it. It didn't run it. Server is unavailable. So it tries to like run the server side code on the client, but it failed because that is not allowed. That's a good thing. So okay, what we want here is we want this on server as well. Now this should work. So on the home page, we got to the login page, we got to the home page, and it's working. Good thing. Okay, so now we get how to fetch data on the server side and on the client side. So obviously, like if you have something to call, if you have an API and you want to call it on the server side, you do not need use effect, create effect, or anything like that. You can create a query for the client side and it will fetch the data for you. How good it is. All right, so next what we need. Now this makes me question a lot of things here. Like the first thing is what if I wait? What if I wait for a while? Like let's say my API is so expensive, it took around 5 seconds to even load. So let's wait for 5 seconds and then return the data. So if I reload it, it took 5 seconds, I assume. Yes, it took 5 seconds. So it waits for the query to complete and then it shows the data. And what if I do not want to wait for it? I want to load a UI, say loading the data, the API taking so long, so there's the loading state. That's the suspense job. So I think if we put this in suspense over here, fallback to loading, save it now and reload it. Loading, so it gave us result instantly. It is still loading the web page. It still took the 5 seconds, but it shows the possible state first, shows the loading UI, and as as soon as they get the data, it shows on the client side how good it is. Perfect. So if I go to the login page, it's, oh, no. And I go to the home page, loading, done. All right, really nice. Really nice. Now this makes me question this user query. So what if I copy paste it? And let's say this is a test query. And this is also going to wait for it, but this does not read the session. It's a test query. And it returns 1, 2, 3, 4. And we do not want the value. So what if we just do like this? Create async test query. So what do you guys think? Like, they both got the same name. So it should call both of them, or should it call the single one? And if the single one, then which one? Time to find out. Hard reload. User query. It didn't call the test query at all. Maybe because we call this first. Test query. So yes, this is the role. So what happens is test query. So create asyncs calls the test query that have a name of user query. All right. And then our second line calls the user query, which also have the name user query. Then router thinks, all right, we already called the user query a few seconds ago. So we do not have to call it again. Let's wait for the results and then show the data. So it didn't call it. And guess what? We even get answer for 1, 2, 3, 4. So we actually call the user query this function, and we get the result from this function. Why is that? The reason is simple, because behind the scenes is doing the deduplication. Like, it's mentioned right on their website. No. It do deduplication. So when two calls have the same name, so if that means if I have the same query and I call it twice, like, let's remove this and let's call this same query twice. So in the typical framework like Next.js, it should call it like user query 2 times. But in here, it only calls single time. Like, it calls this, and this guy waits for the result of this query. And once it satisfies, both got the same results. So that's the beauty of this name. So sorry. Use names properly, because if you like mistakenly provide the same name to two different queries, you may end up in an unexpected behavior. All right, so experiments apart. So let's remove this. We're not gonna wait for it. It's all right. We're not gonna return the data. If session.data.email is not found, we gonna return. How to redirect? How to redirect in the SolidStart, in the data fetching, throw a redirect. All right, let's throw a redirect to login. Otherwise, return session data.email. So if I go to home page, cannot set header after they are sent to client. So something strange is going on. If I go to the home page and it do the server side rendering, it redirects me to the login page. But let's say I disable this line and I go to the home page. I'm on the home page. Reload. home page, and it works. Okay, home page, login page. All right. Why are we getting cannot set header? Let's see. Why did we even get it? Oh, there it is. Once streaming begins, response header includes status and cookies are sent and cannot be changed. Any header modification logic within a server function, such as redirects or APIs like use session, that set cookie, which means if I clear the cookies and then go to home page, now it still works. Must before stream start, otherwise this error will happen. To avoid this, disable streaming for queries that modifies header, enabling defer stream. So that's where it comes in. So basically the problem is there is no cookie, there is no session, and user lands on the page, lands on the login page, and then they click on the home page. Now this query runs, but it, like, how can I put this? It actually sends the data first because it's in suspense, and then behind the scenes it is still running the query, and this query tries to create a cookie, but it cannot do it because the response headers are already sent to the client. Now it cannot set any cookie. So that's why it gave us the error that it cannot set any cookie. And to solve this, SolidStart saying that we should defer it, which means it will not send the initial response until this query is completed. That's what it's trying to say. So that's a bad practice. Like if you have an API which is taking 5 seconds to load and you make it defer stream, then it's gonna wait for 5 seconds and then gonna send an initial response. So make sure, guys, when you set any cookies or anything that's doing anything with the response, it has to be fast as possible. Like in this case, we are actually doing even nothing. We're reading and returning the data. So let's make it defer stream true. And when we do it, now it should not give us that error. Okay, so we are on the home page. We cannot access the home page because we do not have the session. Okay, so now we need to create a UI. We need to set data in this session in order to access it. How can we do that? In the login page, we need a UI. Good thing is, oh no, we need Tailwind. Sorry guys. So we need to install Tailwind in our project. How can we do that? Let's see. Tailwind CSS. Get started. Framework guide. SolidJS. Let's install these packages. Pn add these packages. Once done, we need to configure the Vite plugin, and we do not have Vite config, but Vinci have the Vite config, which means this thing should have something related to Vite. Vite, any type. Should this work? I'm sure. Let's try it out. And once done, import this. So we do not have any CSS file. Let's create one, app.css, paste in it. In here we import app.css, and then in the login, let's say class text red 500. All right, I hope it should work. No idea, because the Vite type has any, and it shouldn't be any. It's red, so it works. Okay, so that means we can pass any kind of Vite configuration in this Vite object. But it should, I assume they fixed it in the new V2 version, because it shouldn't be type any. But it's all right. So we got the Vite working. Now we can open our Codex CLI. Okay. So what we want that please create a UI in login, simple UI, nothing fancy, form, email, password in Tailwind and Solid. So it will do the job. Okay, so it creates something. We got a super simple HTML. That's the job. Let's do the pndev, reload the page, and we got a simple login page. Now, the next thing is when user fill this form, we need to get this data on the server side, set into the session, and redirect to the home page. And how are we going to do it? All right, so this is day 2, and we are in the part 2 of the video. And let's see how we can take the data from the user and send it on the server side. So let's start with our documentation. So what do we got? Let's say we have data fetching, data mutation. Mutating data on server is a common task in most applications, and Solid Router provides an actions to manage data mutation. All right, so they have this action function, and we can use that to send the data. All right, and with the help of use server, we can compute all of this on the server. Well, that's exactly what we need. We need an action that takes email and password, and then we're gonna check if the user exists in the database, but we do not have any database. So let's say the user exists, and then we want to update the session and redirect to the home page. And we can also pass a name in here. So maybe if you have duplicate actions with the same name, it will not call that action, I assume. All right, they have single flight mutation. When a piece of data changes on the server, the new data need to be fetched on UI. That doesn't fall out of sync. Traditionally, this is done 2 separate HTTP requests. One to update the data and second to fetch the new data. Single flight mutation. Okay, so I get it. So basically, in Next.js or something, traditionally what happens is when you hit an action, when you hit a form and you send something on the server side, and that action responds you like success, error, or maybe anything. Now your queries, all the data that is on the website need to be refetched, or at least some of the queries need to be refetched. Because let's say, for example, we fetch the user's balance and show it on the header, and then user did something on the form and let's say take out $50. So now when the action is completed, we need to update that balance and reduce $50. So traditionally what it happens is when you send a form and you get a data, now your router sends a new call for the get balance and it gives the new data. So it's a two-way communication, second fetch. But in single fetch mutation, what happens is when you submit a form, the response contains the new data for all the queries. So in just one call, you get a new data for all the sites, and that's really interesting. So we're going to check about this as well. Okay, so we need an action. All right, so let's come to our code base and let's create an action. So let's say it's going to be login action from Solid Router. All right. So what does it need? Expect 1 or 2 argument, but got 0. So the second argument is optional, which means the name is optional. We can provide it or not provide it. Okay. Let's say still got an error. It says overload mismatch, giving the following error is not assignment to type promise. So it has to be an asynchronous function, just like a query. Okay, so now what? I see where it's going, but how to use this action? I mean, all right, you created the action, but how to use this action? We can pass ID, we can pass form data, then we can do something with the form data, and we can use action just like this. So we can just provide the action name with the method post and it will send it. All right, interesting thing. Let's check it. Form data is going to be a form data type. And let's say const data equal, yes, that's what exactly I want. Well, AI is really interesting these days. That is another thing I want. And now I want that in the form, actions should be login action, and it satisfies. Wow. And method gonna be a post method. So what I assume is when I click on sign in button, it will send the form data over to this action and this will log the data. All right, time to find out. So yummy, let y@z.com. Super simple. Here we hit the password and we get the sign in. Nothing happened. Wait. So it prints something on the client side. It prints something on the client side. So, oh, I see. So we do not use server. So what if I do use server? Use server. Okay. And then I do like another example. And then I hit sign in. Nothing's on the client side, but this is on the server side. Actually, I clicked 2 times. Interesting. So that means we can also create client-side actions, which means we do not have to do like on submit and then prevent defaults and then do your logic and then whole stuff. You can just create a client-side action, but then sorry, but then the question comes like, can we redirect on the client side? Is it possible? So let's say that on the home page we're not gonna throw back the user, and from in here, no client side, we display the data and we throw a read to home page. What do you guys think? Because redirect, I'm not sure if it's a server side function or it's a client side function. It's coming from a router, and router is both server side and client side. Time to find out. So again, oh man, blah blah blah, sign in, boom, we are on the home page. So the redirect also works on the client side, so, which means like if you guys want to create a search bar that have a form input, you do not have to do a lot of JavaScript like on submit, on blah blah whatsoever. You can create a client side action beautifully, pass the action, and it will do the job. Interesting. Okay, so now let's say use server, but that makes me question a lot of things. Like for example, if we look at it, this is not an action, it's just a normal function and it still runs on the server side. Then why do we even have to create an action? Why can't we just create a server function? For example, server function equals an asynchronous function that gonna use the server, and let's say sf called. Okay, and now if I add a button, which is say click me, and then yeah and then on click, I'm gonna call the server function, or yeah, I mean, let's try it out. Login page, click me. I did click on it. In the network sources, let's quickly see, click me. So it sends a server request and it gives a response. And on the server side, SF is called. Okay, so how does, if you just want to create a server function, create a function, put the use server, and that's it, and just mount it on the client side. Interesting. So why even log in? I mean, I can just take it and say boom. Now the types are not working. Now it says promise void is not assignable to the type of string serializable attribute value. Okay, so I think action is specially created for forms, so you guys can have form data and Okay, they say that it also refresh your queries. Okay, I have a question, another question. So what if I create a query, a test query, okay, and it's a query, it's gonna be an async function, use server, and wait for a second, yeah, all right, and then return test. Oh, obviously we need name here. Okay, and in here I want, let's say, I do not want data, so let's say create async, and let's just call the test query. This syntax is bad. I mean, we can just also take it and just say test query, but then it's a type error, like you have to pass a function that returns a promise and blah blah blah. Oh yeah, why not? Okay, if you do this, go to the home page, reload the page, because it returns the test, it is not console. So after 1 second we got test. Okay, so what if I take the data, I log the data, then what if that login action, we got test, we came over here, we filled the form, okay, we hit the sign in, it sends the data to, it's a form data, and send the data to the action, to the endpoint. We get the data, and then it automatically refetch the query to reload the new data. But does that happen in a single flight mutation, or does it call a new route? Like if we save the response, I do not see anything in here, because obviously it does not return anything. So how about we return it? We return the test, we take the value here, and somewhere over here let's display the value, but it has to be in the suspense, otherwise it will like cause a lot of waiting. Suspense data fallback loading, yeah, cool. So we got test, and if we reload it, loading, and then we got test. Okay, so let's hit our form. Let's say what initiated. Oh, sorry guys, this is from the Bitwarden plugin, so it has nothing to do with the SolidStart. Cool. So let's fill our data, y.com, blah 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 blah. Let's clear it out, send it to the server, send it to the server. Okay, so it is not single flight mutation, guys. So this is the request happens when I click sign in button, and once I get the response from this endpoint, the router from the client side refetch the query, which takes 1 second, and that returns the data again. So this is not single flight mutation. So how to turn on single flight mutation? How to turn it on? Time to find out. Single flight mutation. Well, I'm not saying it. How to turn on single flight mutation? Maybe something's here. The action that updates the data must execute on the server using server functions. The data action update must be preload if the action must be preload. So what is preload? Root preloading. Root preloading powers static site generation by providing static HTML pages during the build process. Oh no, this is not the preloading we are looking for. We are looking for this preloading, this thing. So I assume like it's more of like when you hover on a link, it fetches the query for you. So when you click on a link, it doesn't have to fetch the data again. It already have the data, so it just shows the content for you. Time to find out. So all right, export const root satisfies root definition. It was that, right? Yeah. And this thing will have preload function. And now we can call our query function. So test query. Okay. So test query. And now if I fill the data, I say y.com, blah 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 blah. If I fill the data, submit. Come on, I don't need you. Submit. How impressive is it? Now it takes 1 second. And it doesn't make another call. It's a single flag mutation. And in the response, we got the response for the query as well. Whoa, impressive. So let's say you have 10 queries. So it will not make 10 different requests. It will just, you hit the form, you get the request, you update the UI very nicely, very beautifully. Amazing. And you can see we get the data on the server and it calls the query. Impressive, really impressive. All right, so now what? Can load the data, but this server function, can this reload data? Time to find out. So what I want is, if I click on click me, it just took 2 seconds, which means it didn't refresh the query. SF call, it didn't refresh the query. So that's the difference, guys. If you use action, uses for data manipulation, you take the data from client, send it on the server, and you want your UI to be reloaded. And use server functions when you do not want UI update, where you just want a simple, maybe a data sign, because you can pass data, I assume. Like if I say number, how impressive it is. Number and 5. I go over here, click on it, 5. So that means you can also pass the data. So use server functions when you just want to send the data and want to do the server job without updating the UI. A silent, super simple server function. And if you want to do the UI updates, use action. All right, impressive. So we don't need this, we do not need this, we neither need your test queries, so neither single flag mutation, not this, blah blah blah, not this, and then obviously we're not gonna this as well. Let's click over here, and no, we do not need this. We also do not need any of this. Okay, cool. So we got the data on the server side. Now we can update our session. So const session equals await, what was that? Use user session. Okay, and what we got in session, so if we look at it, session have quite few things. We can clear a session, we can check the data, session also have their ID, and we can update a session. That's what we need. So let's update the session. So first of all, let's return an error. Like how to, like obviously things not go well all the time. What if our form does not have email? Because that is not required over here. So let's say if the data does not have email. Well, obviously you guys don't do this like this way, right? You use Zard to verify your data, validate it, so you get types and then work on it. So if I say throw new error, what will happen? Throw new error. And update the session. Let's say await. Is that let's say session.update. We're gonna update the email with the data.email. Oh, data.email. Obviously as string, because, and by the way guys, do not use as keyword in TypeScript. That's really bad. And then we're gonna throw redirect to homepage. So what I think is like it's also a promise, so we need to wait for it, otherwise it's keep trying to update the session and then it throws to the homepage. Now I want to disable this plugin, but in the same point I also don't want to do that. It's all right. So let's say exploit.com blah blah blah. No, we're not gonna fill email, we're just gonna fill password. We hit sign in. We hit sign in. It throws an error. It throws an error. Well, obviously nothing on the client side, but it throws an error. So what does say? Object.assign new error email is required. In stack, we also got stack trace. So now the question is how to display this error on the UI. The answer is gonna be here somewhere. How are we gonna do that? Data mutation guidelines. So we create an action, we did this, yes, passing additional arguments. So apart from form data, we can also pass additional arguments, and then by using with function, we can use that. Good. Showing pending UI. Use submission. So when we use submission, we got a pending. So like it's when your action is working on the server side, that is true. So you can display a pending UI. Handling errors, yeah, that's what we want. Import usage submission, and use submission have the error in it. All right. Const login submission. Let's say use submission. Login action, yes. Now, first of all, let's handle this thing. So this guy will be disabled when it's pending, not submitting, when it's pending. And okay, and we're gonna show an error message when login sub have an error. An error can be anything, so that is bad. It would be nice if we get types in here, but let's say we got errors. And yes. So error can be anything, right? So how do we know it's type? Submission.error.message. Yeah, that's the same thing. So error.message, I believe. Time to find out. So I'm gonna just enter the password, hit sign in. Nothing happens. Why is that? Let's say just display the error. It's a type of accessor. It's an accessor. I see where it's going. So that gives us a signal. That gives us a signal. Boom, email is required. Oh yes. So that error is actual error that got a message value in here, and we can get it like that. Nice, super nice, super nice. All right, so that's a good thing. That means this disable UI is also working. Like if I take some time, await new promise, wait for at least 3 seconds, and on disabled, I want your opacity. Yeah, not opacity, that's a different term. To be 70%. And let's hit show, and this goes pending, and we then do the stuff, and whoa, really nice. There we go. Awesome. So we do not want that much time, but yeah, it's all right. Now let's pass some good stuff in here. So let's say below the page, yummy at dummy. .com. Password. Sign in. And we are on the home page. Hooray. 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 So if I say, oh yeah, that was wrong. But still doesn't make sense because in our session we got the email. So where is the session? If we go at application, we go at cookies. There is your session and there is the encrypted value. So this is encrypted by an algorithm. So which algorithm does it use? Another interesting question. So first of all, where is this even session coming from? It's coming from Vinci's HTTP. So let me teach you guys how to find stuff like which algorithm does it even use. Simply go in here and we say that it returns hell a lot of things. Session, so something's here. Session update. So these are all signatures. This is not actual code. Use session. So as I said, Vinci uses Vite and Nitro, and Vite is just a bundler, so it has to be coming from Nitro. So let's go for Nitro.js documentation. Let's look for use session. Nothing's here. Nothing is here. Configuration. Where can I find it? Where can I find it? You can also take full control of the server entry by creating server.ts file. Nitro high-level runtime agnostic approach let you create any library such as Alicia, H3 or Hono. Use any library. Okay. So maybe this is just to run the server. This is not the actual server. So it's using something to communicate with Node.js, and that has to be one of H3 Hono or maybe something like that. It uses something. Let's figure it out. H3 migration guide, S3 V2 is 3 node utils, web standards, session. Yep. Then let's go to Vinci directly. Session, no session. Oh boy. Session, HTTP event. I don't even know which file is it. I turned off node modules, Vinci. Does that start? What's it's doing in here? Okay. Vinci. So what is Vinci? Depends on H3. So it is depend on H3. It is using one of those framework like the Nitro said, and it's using H3 from that list. So it has to be H3 that have use session. It has to be H3. H3. There we go. So let's look at session, handling session. There you go. Use session, get session. Hey, there it is, the whole thing. So it uses a password. Where it is? Encryption, password, and where's the encryption? Let's go to the source code. Let's look for a file session, bench util test util session. Get session, unseal it. And what does the seal even do? HMAC. It uses HMAC algorithm. HMAC is a key hashing function. Alright, I think this is unnecessary information, but we can figure out things like that. Anyway, so now we got the session. We got how to fetch the data, how to mutate the data, and how to do loading US and everything. Now we just need to save data somewhere, so we can comment here. All right, for that we're going to use unstorage, my favorite tool. Unstorage, but I have never used it. And it's one of the favorite tools because I saw in many demos, like I never get chance to do it. So how to use it? We can create a storage like that, and we can get an item like that, and has item, has get. How to set? Oh, there it is. You can set it like that, and boom. Okay, hopefully this did not give us any other problems. Let's install it. Once we got the session, we can also create library, but do we even need library? We can just create everything in here, right? Okay, super simple. We're not gonna do anything crazy. So let's say we have another query. Okay, we have another query. So now we do not need it. So let's say we have another query, and that is get do, and it's going to be a query, a super synchronous. Yeah, a super synchronous. Okay, so what we need is create storage. Do we have to do this all the time? Driver uses memory if not provided. Maybe. Or should we use ChatGPT to quickly create us a wrapper? Not sure. I mean, why not? Let's give it a try. Why I am so afraid of? There is nothing to be afraid of. Create session. So give this from unstorage. We do not gonna provide any options in here. Get before. Instead, let's say we want to do. Yeah. Return. Just return it. What does it return? It returns a promised storageable value. Okay, so we have to store it. Do. Now what did you have? You can get 2 string value. Okay, then we need an action. Set to do's, or maybe say append to do's. We're not gonna do anything crazy, we just do append. So it has to be an action which takes an asynchronous function. It takes a form data with type of form data. It has to be a server, obviously, because we are setting data in the storage. But creating storage again, is it a good thing? Maybe. I do not know anything at this point. So let's do this. If you do not found, we return an empty array. Otherwise we return json.parse the to-do.toString. Alright, and let's give it a super simple type, that is type to do with a name string, and it will be an array. Set to do's and as to do's. So now let's jump to the conclusion, and it will to do's. Okay. Okay, so const parse to-dos equals JSON dot parse to string value. No. If we have a to do the JSON parse, please. To do da 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 parse else empty array. And then in this parsed item dot push, there you go. And I guess that is it. So we need a form that have an yep. All right. Hopefully should work. I am 100% not sure. I never used unJS in my life. Oh, sorry, unstorage in my life. Reload the page. Okay. Yo. Error. Cannot read property of null length. And where exactly does that happen? Sorry, because this is not method post. So this is not sending data. It's just append it on. Yeah, we're not gonna call server action. Okay, let's see now. Hey. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Why is that? Maybe we are creating 2 times. Maybe. So let's create a storage.ts file. Move our code base over here. Just like that. Came over here, paste it. Let's get our storage. Let's get our storage and export const. No, yeah, I think export const get to do equal an asynchronous function that returns by awaiting to do's. Export const set append to do's equals well, you know what, let's const do's equals this, and then if do's not found, we return like this. Otherwise we return JSON dot parse use dot string value, and we got to do, so you can just stringify it and add it. Yeah, that's what we want. Now in here we just say return await get to do. Damn. So get to do query. All right, so this has to be big no. We're just gonna say that await append as string. Append to do's. Oh man. or else test value. We just want to get this done. Let's take it, paste it over here. Hopefully it should work now. Reload the page. Hey, we are not showing to-dos. Okay, so that is not its problem. All right, why not? I mean, so yeah, this thing returns any, so we do not want to return any as string array. Let's say string array. Yeah, it returns a string array. Yep, it returns it. So that means we need to create const to-dos, create async def stream. Now we do not want def stream. We want it to wait for a while. We do not even want that. So we're gonna use for component of SolidJS, and for each to-dos we're gonna print the to-dos. Now that's the right thing. Hey, unexpected token. Hey is not a valid JSON. Hey is not a valid JSON. Now where we screwed up again? We screwed up somewhere. We got an empty array. We push in it, but it's unable to take it. Yeah. Screw it. Boot up. Here we go. Please fix the unstorage implementation and make it work. I want to use persistent in memory even if I log out or log in as other user. So let it work. Till then I will pause the video. Or it's doing the job. So it found something. I found storage split across and I found self. The bug is likely structure. To-dos are stored under one global key. I see. Like a problem. All right. Not sure how much time it's going to take. I just want to know why. What is the issue? Make the storage true process level singleton so memory survives without reloads. Revalidate the to-do query after write so the UI reflect the shared in-memory state immediately. Add an split. Okay. So I'm quite not sure. I don't know in which direction it's going, and I'm not getting good feeling that it's going to the right direction. So what if we cut it? I don't trust this thing right now. Let's go to our SolidStart examples, because definitely those guys have used on storage apps. SolidJS templates. Okay, with SolidStart v1. With auth. Maybe no. db.ts unstorage. So they did use it. All right, so the way they did it is by this driver. Okay, now this is more reliable than AI. It's better tested. Those guys have done it. All right, so what's next? So we got the user data, user counter, promise set, return, find, return. I hope it works now, because we also killed the AI server. Okay, hey, error happens at get to dos. Unexpected hi or hey is not a valid JSON at JSON parse. So something happens when it tries to parse it. Let's say console log to dos. All right. Oh, so you're not gonna leave me? Oh man. Ah, so this is persistent now. It must have created some data file over here. Data to dos. Hey. Okay. So now it's time to find out. So it's already a JSON. It's already a JSON. We don't have to parse it. Okay. Learn something new. So let's just return the to-dos. Boom. Yo. Boom. All right. So now we want one last thing to make our application complete, and that is to log out. How are we going to log out? So just like the login action, we will have another action that will clear the session and throw back to the login page. Const log out action equals action, and then gonna do very quickly use server, and then let's get the session by like that, and then wait for it. Session dot clear, so it will clear the session, and then we're gonna throw redirect to slash login. And now I don't want to create a form just for that, but still, let's say so a button which says log out. Yeah, form action, there it is. So form action gonna be log out action. Not sure, but it should work. Log out, nothing happens. So maybe it only works when the button is inside a form and you want to change the form's actions. Basically, like if I say go inside this form, now it will work, I hope. But I mean, why this must happen? Let's just create a form, or there must be something to use this action outside a form. SolidStart. Time to find out. Action. Use submission, we know that. Use action. Use action primitive returns a function that triggers an action when called. So we can do something like that. Like post. Yeah, we want to do something like this. Yes, so the primitive is const log out equals use action log out action. There we go. So if I click on logout, clears the session and I'm on the login page. How nice is it? If I go to the home page, it will not let me because there is no session there. But if I say yo@gmail.com blah 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 blah, log in, and I can say hey to do, boom. So we got everything working. We learned about sessions, queries, actions, server actions, single flag mutation, a lot, file routing, and a lot of things. So this information is enough to like create your application in. But now, like, it contains many things, like how to move this application to version v2, or if you think about it, like if it gives us more control. But that's for another video. I think it's already too long, and today we learned a lot of things. We did a lot of experiments. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section, and bye bye.